You're listening to Parasearch Radio, news, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio. Parasearch Radio, broadcasting to the UK and beyond.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. You're listening to Kerry Greenaway and Mark Manley on the Dark Mirror Paranormal Show, only on Parasearch Radio.
The tomb of a fairy.
Pharaoh.
Ah, right, okay. I didn't know if you understood the tomb of a fairy. If, I don't know, for example, you had an Egyptian pharaoh come back with like angel wings on and like a tutu and a magic wand and went, "Oh, how dare you!" I didn't know.
Maybe we could. Maybe that could happen.
Funeral rites of the ancient fairies. That'd be brilliant.
But they were taught by the priests that you weren't to disturb these tombs. You'd be hunted down, you'd be tormented, and you would probably end up dying. But we've seen that in lots and lots of different Hollywood movies, but there seems to be a bit of basic truth in the movies about what they believe. But in the earlier times, the Egyptians buried their dead straight into the ground. They might have to preserve them a bit because it's a bit hot and dry climate in the country, so they were buried curled up in a fetal position with a few simple pots and possessions and things. But as time went on, the kings and the rich Egyptians wanted something better, and the few people who could afford it built simple mud brick tombs called mastabas. They were built. Mastabas. That's a modern Arabic word. It means bench, and the tombs do actually look like benches. But the problem with that was relatives were going back and finding out that the bodies had rotted. They weren't being naturally preserved. So because they weren't in the ground, they weren't being naturally preserved, so they had to find another way to do it. And that's when they started to develop the mummification process. But that took a lot of years of trial and error for them to perfect it.
Do you know how I reckon they really invented the mummification process?
Go ahead.
You know how I reckon? With the wrappings? Well, you know most of the gods had cats, and they worshipped cats, and cats were sacred, and cats were gods because basically they're sly and intelligent overlords that have actually enslaved the human race without us knowing about it, yeah?
Yeah.
Right. Well, Personally, I reckon that the gods watched the cats in the toilet with a toilet roll, and that's where the mummification process came from. Yes.
I have a question about that, though.
Go on.
How do you know they had toilet roll back then?
Because they used linen wraps.
Okay, then. Fair enough.
There you go. They used linen wraps. They had cat scratching posts and everything. So, and then they looked at the cats and went, "We got that's for shizzle. We got to do that. We've got to do this." I reckon everybody in the chat room should get involved in this because they're saying aliens, aliens, and everything else. And yes, to be honest, I'm aliens, Egyptians, aliens. That's another show entirely. But yes, I reckon they could do that. So, all this information, is this by any chance in the Book of the Dead?
Yes.
The Egyptian Book of the Dead?
Yes.
Not the Scottish Book of the Dead?
No, it's definitely the Egyptian Book of the Dead.
Okay, because the Scottish Book of the Dead is all about making stoners, isn't it?
I don't know, I've never read that one.
It's just a recipe book for the chippy in the middle of Glasgow. Right, carry on.
Anyway, they started to do the mummification process, but it took a lot of years and there was a lot of trial and error trying to perfect it. The early mummified remains were dried out in the sun or with natron salt, and they were wrapped in linen. The linen was then sometimes wrapped in plaster that had been moulded to look like the person. But around the 4th dynasty, and about the time of the pyramids, embalmers began removing internal organs after death.
Dynasty in the 80s?
To help the
massive shoulder
mummification
pads.
process. But again, that took many years for them to perfect it as well.
How many years do you think it took?
Oh, I'm not sure. But it was really expensive, so only the pharaohs and the really rich people could afford that.
Well, you couldn't really have a commoner, being covered head to toe in bandages and mummification and cats laughing at them and pointing and saying, that was my toilet roll earlier. But, yeah.
All in all, the mummification process took 70 days. And there was
70 days? Why did it take 70 days?
I don't know, it just did.
Oh, God, they dragged their heels, didn't they? So, come on, what did they do in those 70 days,
Right.
do you think?
Special priests worked as embalmers, treating and wrapping the body. Beyond knowing the correct rituals and prayers to be performed at various stages, the priests also needed to know a detailed knowledge of the human anatomy. The first step in the process was removal of all internal organs that might decay rapidly. The brain was removed by carefully inserting a specially hooked instrument up through the nostrils in order to pull out bits of brain tissue.
Oh, God, that's a crochet hook up the nose.
Gross. It was a delicate operation, one which could easily disfigure the face of the person that had died. The embalmers then removed the organs of the abdomen and chest through a cut usually made on the left side of the abdomen. They only left the heart in place, believing it to be the centre of the person's being and intelligence. The other organs were preserved separately, with the stomach, liver, lungs and intestines placed in special boxes or jars, today called canopic jars.
Canopic jars. Did you know that before they did any of this, they washed the body first with wine and spices?
I didn't.
But they did it with good-smelling palm wine and then rinsed it with water from the Nile.
Oh. Posh.
Yeah. That's before they did any of the embalming or anything. Any of the removing of internal organs and willies and stuff like that, they washed it down first. Tell me something. I digress, because I know Kerry's sitting in the background listening, going, oh my God, what's he going to say next? So I'm not going to say aliens. I will say aliens at some point, because basically the listeners demand it. If they took all the internal organs off, and the ancient Egyptians believed that the heart was where the intelligence came from and not the brain, where did the willy go? Did that have a special jar on its own? Did it have a big jar with two smaller jars, one on each side? What?
I think they just left that where it was.
Well, that's not very nice, is it? I'd have put it in a special jar for later. Mm.
Well, come on, being fair, they removed internal organs. Internal.
Well, I've heard that being called an organ before.
Yeah, but it's not internal, is it?
Well, unless it's really cold. Anyway. Yes.
So, you've put me off now.
I'm very good at that.
Right, so all these jars were buried with the mummy. In later years, the jars were part of the burial ritual.
Yeah.
The embalmers next removed all moisture from the body. They did this by covering the body with natron, a type of salt, which has great drying properties, and placing additional natron packets inside the body. When the body dried out completely, embalmers removed the internal packets and lightly washed the natron off the body. The result was a very dried out but recognisable human form.
They also used water from the Nile as well because it was believed holy.
Yeah. To make the mummy seem even more lifelike, sunken areas of the body were filled out with linen and other materials, and false eyes were added.
So pretty much like the teenagers of these days anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know where they got the natron from, or natron?
No, I don't.
It's a type of silica, and although it's salty silica, that just sounded so wrong. You know the quarries that they had where they used to get stone and everything? They also had salt mines and everything like that, and they used to get it from there. There had to be a source closer than that, because then it would be holy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Carry on, don't mind me, I'm just rambling.
Okay. After that, they began wrapping the bodies. Each mummy needed hundreds of yards of linen. The priest carefully wound the long strips of linen around the body, sometimes even wrapping each finger and each toe separately before wrapping the entire hand or foot.
If they wrapped,
yeah.
I'm gonna keep butting it. If they wrapped, does that mean you had like? Because I've got visions of a pharaoh spark out on the table, with loads of people around him, and then you got people doing the legs, the hands, and the head and stuff, and you got some guy in the background like MC Hammer. No, he's like encouraging him along, and he's like, "I went to the doctor's office. That's a word I got." He said, "You're dead, boy." Yeah. Hey, rapping, and just before I say anything else, everybody in the chat room, get your minds out the gutters and stop talking about Willie's J. Lynch. God, carry on.
Who started that, Mark? Anyway,
You did.
No, you did.
You did. Deep fried stoners.
Behave. In order to protect the dead from mishap, amulets were placed amongst the wrappings and prayers and magical words written on some of the linen straps. Often the priest placed a mask of the person's face between the layers of head bandages, and at several stages the form was coated with a warm resin and wrapping resumed once again. At last the priest finally wrapped the final cloth or shroud in place and secured it with linen strips, and the mummy was complete.
What else did they do with the linen as well?
I'm not sure. What do you know that I don't? Well,
they used to, they used to write things on the linen, and what they did, if they didn't like the person they were actually mummifying, they'd say, "You smell," and then hide it in the wrappings and things like that. That's what they did. They did.
I don't think they did.
I really think they did. When you got the guy rapping in the background and you got the head rapper going as he's doing the fingers, and he's just written on that, "I really don't like you," and then wrapped him up. That's what I think.
Okay. Once the remains were mummified and the tomb was prepared and all the deceased worldly goods were packed into the tomb for them to use in the afterlife, the funeral was held. But even if the deceased was popular and they had plenty of mourners, the funeral procession was accompanied by kites of... I'm going to mess this up, aren't I? Go on, say it.
No. You, go on. Just have a look, see if you can do it.
Nephesis?
Nephis. Spit it so hard your teeth come out. Nephis.
Yeah, that. Who were always women. Who were actually paid to lament loudly during the funeral procession. They sang the lamentation of Isis and Nephthys, which originally...
What is lamentation? Is it like getting a lemon drink and fermenting it into forbidden alcohol? What is it?
It's like a song or a hymn. Or
is it the one where they wail and go, "Oh God, he's dead"?
Yeah, like that. Which originally came from the myth of the two sisters weeping over Osiris and was supposed to encourage emotion from the others at the funeral. They believed that remembrance of the dead ensured the continuous existence in the afterlife, and they believed a great showing of grief was heard it echoed in the Hall of Truth. So from the Kingdom period and on, they performed an opening of the mouth ceremony, either just before the funeral itself or after the body was laid in the tomb. A priest would recite spells. He used a ceremonial blade to touch the mouth of the deceased so that he could breathe, eat and drink again in the afterlife. And then he would touch the arms and legs so they could move about in the tomb. Once
that was real. Cool.
I know. Once the body was laid to rest in the tomb and it had been sealed off, other prayers and spells were performed, for example, the Litany of Osiris, or in the case of a pharaoh, the spell known as the Pyramid Texts. Then after these were performed, the deceased was then left to begin its journey into the afterlife.
See, I think personally that if you're an Egyptian pharaoh, and your rule is absolute, you can do what you want, you can take all your concubines with you, this, that, and the other. They got a hell of a long time to wait between carking it to going, yes, I have arrived, and going up the river and everything. And then, as I've just seen in the chat room, nicotine, Valium, ecstasy, alcohol, and iron brew apparently are found in all the in a load of mummies. Iron brew, really? Iron brew?
Iron brew.
Scottish mummies. Iron brew and stoners found in the Clyde. I don't know.
Well, you never know.
Well, nicotine, Valium, and what was it? I'm just looking in the chat room there. Cocaine and everything else. I know about the cocaine, but as was said, the cocaine actually came from South America. So how does South American cocaine and tobacco got to Egypt and that? We shall never know. But they were supposed to have been the trade route, weren't they? Because they think that they found evidence recently of trade between the Americas and the ancient Egyptians, don't they? And ancient Africa and everything. So you never know. They could have, back then you had Juan Esteban Pablo, procuring cocaine for the Egyptians and going, don't tell anybody, right? Otherwise you wake up and you're going to have, like, Osiris's head in bed beside you if you squeal.
Yeah,
that's what it
could.
Carry on.
Carry on. The ancient Egyptians never believed in complete death. It actually scared them to think that once you died, you were gone forever. So much so that the pharaohs had their favourite slaves smothered to death and buried with them. That is so cruel, isn't it?
Okay, your favourite slave?
Their favourite slaves. They had them smothered to death and buried with them.
What were they smothered with?
I don't know, but they had them smothered and buried with them so that the slaves were there to look after them in the afterlife and to serve them.
Well, how did they get smothered? I mean, did a very large priest come along and sit on them?
I don't know. They probably had people whose job it was to smother slaves.
I can just see them going, smother us!
Yeah.
Big sumo wrestlers coming and go, okay. You can see the pair of legs sticking out from the bottom, going, and that's the end of it.
So that
I haven't had a tablet today, ladies and gentlemen, just to let you know.
We would never have noticed, honestly, Mark. We wouldn't have noticed. No. But anyway.
Waiting for them to. Here, chat room. How do you think they smothered them? Let us know. Carry on.
Okay. This belief is backed up by the fact that they had their boats, jewels, and personal belongings all buried with them, so they had everything they needed in the field of reeds, which is their term for the afterlife, with them. But
with
why?
That?
Yeah, they needed all with them in the field of reeds.
See, I quite like the idea about that. The field of reeds sounds really serene and peaceful. I do like the idea of that. But
yeah, but how peaceful and serene is that if you're smothering human beings to take with you to serve you? That isn't very serene or peaceful.
To be fair, they did used to do that with their favourite horses and animals as well.
Yeah.
That they didn't do it with their cats, although after cats passed away, I know that cats were mummified as well. So sometimes you will find mummified cats in digs. And I know, I think it was near the Sphinx recently, they found a hell of a lot more burials, didn't they? And they were the original ones that you were talking about, where they're curled up in the fetal position.
Yeah.
I didn't sort of, but these ones, presumably because of the area it was in, where they were actually dried out really well. They've been categorising them. I think they've found something like 700 or something ridiculous like that so far.
Wow.
And you know the canopic jars?
Yeah.
Did you know that each canopic jar has a different thing? It's got like a different god on each one.
Yeah, I did know that.
Well, there you go. And what's the one that looks after the lungs?
I don't know. I know they have
baboon one! Baboon one for the lungs, the jackal-headed one for the stomach, and I can't even pronounce this. Quebesenuf, the falcon-headed god, looks after the intestines, and Imseti, the human-headed god, looks after the liver. There you go.
Ah.
I have a puppy pinging around me. I've got a dog panting beside me. I've got a daughter looking at me and showing me things on the iPad, which, quite frankly, have nothing whatsoever to do with Egyptians. So please shove it. And I'm trying to, listen to you and enjoy the show and listen to Kerry falling off the chair laughing and trying not to poop herself at the same time. But yeah, it's good fun.
Would you like me to continue?
Yeah, carry on.
Carry on. It was firmly believed and taught in ancient Egypt that when you died, your soul travelled to the Hall of Truth. And Osiris and the 42 judges were there to judge you, basically. They did this by weighing its heart in balance with the white feather of truth. And if the heart was lighter, then the feather of truth would proceed to the afterlife or field of reeds. And if it was heavier, it was cast to the floor and eaten by a monster, and the soul would cease to exist.
It's a bit harsh.
It is a bit harsh, isn't it?
A bit harsh, yes. See, I've always thought with these like afterlife things, how do people know this? Have they been there and gone, there's 42 judges here? Reminds me of my youth. I better go back to the living again. Do you reckon?
I'm not sure.
And, oh dear, they're off in the chat room. Richard and James.
Maybe one of the higher priests had this special knowledge.
Higher priest. See, I told you, rapping, high, it's just a hotbed of rapping and drugs and narcissistic values and stuffing people with salt and rags and sawdust whilst people are beatboxing behind them. Do you know what it sounds like? It was bad news back then. You had the slave masters like, and you had them rapping, and and they were like, yeah, man, and they were smoking reefers and things like that. That's what the special herbs were. Yes, that's what the special herbs were. It wasn't anything to do with putting them on the body at all. They were just completely out of it. There you go.
Ah, you figured it out.
I have figured out. And according to James Steele in the chat room there, apparently they got Rabsy Nesbitt to breathe on them. And Richard Clemens says they smothered them with either super strength skull lager or pints of heavy. You two are complete wallies. But one thing James does say is the master builders had to be killed like Taj Mahal. Yeah, this is very true. So that they couldn't replicate the secrets or give them away. Rabsy Nesbitt. Really?
Rabsy Nesbitt.
Do you think they're being a bit racist to you, though?
No, I don't speak like that, so... I'm Scottish, but I don't speak like Rabsy Nesbitt, so...
Oh, you really don't? You don't speak like him at all.
I don't run about calling people Jimmy.
We Jimmy Cranky!
Be careful,
God, I used to hate that programme so much.
I might just rename you Jimmy now. Anyway...
Do carry on and be very careful, young lady.
In the early period of Egypt, the soul was believed to be a single entity known as Khu, the immortal aspect of a person. This changed, though, in later times, and the soul was then believed to belong to 5 different components. Had 5 different components. 2 of these components, the Ba and the Ka. Ba was spirit, Ka was person. Ba and
Ka is a sheep and a goat,
And they were believed to come together after death in the form of a Khu, and it was then the entity could return as a ghost as a Khu. So Ba would meet would get together. The spirit and personality would get together again.
So they're like this Bart and Carter getting together and then making...
Yeah.
And a bit saucy in the afterlife there.
And it was that entity that would return as a ghost. But it's thought and other beliefs if the right order and observations are not done at burial, the Caz spirit would then not be at peace. For example, if someone drowned and the body was not found, or if a person committed a sin, either before or after a person's death, the Aku was given dispensation by the gods to return to earth to remedy the wrongdoing. In this instance, the person who was being haunted or harassed by the ghost would have to plead their case with the returned spirit and hope that they forgave them and returned to peace. And if that didn't work, they would need to have a priest intervene and judge between the living and the returned spirit.
This story, I've actually, when I was at work last night, I did a bit of research in the quiet period, and I read this story, and this story actually turns up in quite a few religious texts down throughout the years, but it all came from this original Egyptian one. So I'll let you, do you want to tell a story, or do you want me to tell a story?
Go ahead, I'll let you tell the story.
Okay, I've completely forgotten where I was at. Right, here we are. No, my thing has just changed. Hang on. Bear with me. Ramble. Rap. Go on, rap for everybody. Oh, there you go. No. Right, you just missed your cue on that. Right, basically, a woman passed over and she was meant to be at peace in the field of reeds. But this guy came forward and he said, "Look, this woman, she's mad. She won't leave me alone. Even in the afterlife, she is annoying and doing my head in, asking for money, telling me that whatever I've done isn't right, that shell's slightly crooked, do it again. What have I done? Can you sort her out?" And basically he thought that he was being punished for some sin that she was now very aware of. I mean, what, had he been coveting his neighbour's goat, his neighbour's wife? Perhaps he'd been going to the wrong place to have a massage, I don't know. But whatever it was, she's very, very much aware of it. And they had to call out somebody to sort it out, didn't they? Yeah,
they did.
And who did they call out?
I believe he ended up getting a priest. He did try, though. He did try to sort it himself.
He did, but he didn't get very far, did he?
No, he didn't.
"What wicked thing have I done to thee that I should have come to this evil pass? What have I done to thee? But what thou hast done to me is to have laid hands on me, although I had nothing wicked to thee. From the time I lived with thee as thy husband down to today, what have I done to thee that I need to hide? When thou didst sicken of the illness which thou hadst, I caused the master physician to be fetched. I spent 8 months without eating and drinking like a man. He did it like a small girl. I wept exceedingly together with my household in front of my street quarter. I gave linen clothes to wrap thee, and left no benefit undone, including housing benefit. And that had to be performed for thee. And now, behold, I have spent 3 years alone, without entering into a house, though it is not right that one like me should have to do it. This have I done for thy sake, but behold, thou dost not know good from bad." Here we are.
Perfect. And it didn't work. It didn't work, and believe he did eventually get a priest to sort it out.
Do you want to tell us about the ghost story?
I shall tell you.
Ghost story.
The best known ghost story from ancient Egypt is known as a ghost story, but it's sometimes referred, oh Lord, I'm never going to be able to pronounce that. Sometimes referred as Honsimhab and the Ghost. The story dates from the late New Kingdom of Egypt, c. 1570 c. 1069 BCE, and more specifically the Ramesside period, 1186 to 1077 BCE. The story was found in fragments on ostraca pottery with writing on it, basically, which scholars such as George Posner in 1960 and Jürgen von Beckerath in 1922. Beckeras claim are actually copies of a much older story from the Middle Kingdom of Egypt, 2040 to 1782 BCE. A ghost story tells the tale of a high priest, Amun Hossamhab, and his encounter with a his encounter with a restless ghost whose tomb had deteriorated. The story exists on Fort Ostraca, discovered in and around the necropolis of Deir el Medina.
There you go, spot on.
Near Thebes between C18 CE and 1905 CE. The Ostraca today housed in museums in Paris, Florence, Vienna and Turin. But sadly, the conclusion of the tale has never been told. Never ever been found either, apparently.
Never been told, never been found.
No, they kind of made it up at the end.
They probably, well, do you know what? It's like...
In the last part.
You know what?
What?
You know what? They're not listening. Do you know what they're doing out there?
Taking the mick out my accent?
No, they're talking about the Crankies being swingers. And I think on that note, we will take a small break and be back in a minute. You horrible people, you. Let's have a break. Kit Kat.
Hello, Harry Price here. Good evening. If there's nothing myself and everybody else enjoy here on the other side more is the sit back and relax and listen to Parasearch Radio with its paranormal news, views and reviews from across the UK and beyond. Make sure to find out more about them on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web, whatever they are, to keep up to date with all their broadcasts throughout the week. And I hope you enjoy them as much as we do over here. Hello? Is anybody there?
And 3, 2, 1, back in the room. Right. Let's just hope that those lot can stop discussing tiny Scottish people's sex lives and actually, stick to the subject in hand, which is Egyptians. Yes?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, okay, you are listening. Peace, brothers and sisters, just multitasking. Yes, and talking about the Crankies Ghibli bits. Right, okay, you're listening to the Dark Mirror Show with myself, Mark, and Kaz, with Kerry in the background trying not to be very ill. And we're talking about ancient Egyptians and their funeral rites and their jars. And we're also talking about Scottish people and the Crankies. And to be absolutely honest, anything else that apparently isn't paranormal. So, carry on. Hello, Kaz.
Hello. Okay, the story or the ghost story. Different scholars have different interpretations of the tale. Some claim it is a first-person narration by a speaker who, in the night of the necropolis in Thebes, encounters an angry spirit. The nameless narrator then seeks the help of a high priest, and Hossamhab raises his spirit. Hossamhab. I hate that name. Why have they got a
Possum feather?
Raises the spirit to talk to it. Other scholars claim it's a third-person narration, which tells how Hossamhab encountered the spirit in the necropolis and then dedicates himself to helping it find peace. The beginning of the story is as fragmentary as the conclusion, which breaks off, so it's understandable how one concludes that I mentioned at the start indicates a first-person narration. The story makes more sense as third-person, omniscient narration, however, as no first-person narrator makes an appearance after the opening lines, and these lines could, in fact, be dialogue spoken by Hossamhab. You're being, I swear. The next weird name that comes up, you're saying it. I've completely...
appears and says his name is Nebuchadnezzar.
Yeah, that's an Egyptian name, isn't it?
Nebuchadnezzar. And then Hossamhab. That's the spirit who's troubling him. And Nebuchadnezzar replies that his tomb has fallen and no one now remembers where he's buried. Poor bugger. He must be real lonely. And that proper offerings are no longer brought. So Nebuchadnezzar says he is exposed in the wintry wind. Ooh, that sounds painful. And hungry without food. How would you... See, that's one of the things that gets me. You're in the afterlife. Your stomach's in a jar over there. How are you going to eat? I mean, is it going to go? It's going to be like Casper, isn't it? They're going to go in one end and just drop out the other, isn't it? Yeah. See, I just, and also, well, this is very true. And also, when you think that all these wrappings and stuff, and they've all got resin in, so there's no way they can bend their knees or arms or anything. They can't open a little flap at the back to have poo, And also, you've got the Isis knot amulet, which is on the body. I dread to think where it is. And, and they've also got the plummet amulet, which is supposed to keep the person balanced in the next line. Balance, does that mean on the line between good and bad? Balance, does it mean on the line between alive and dead? Or balance, does it mean on the line of being sane or completely irrational, like most of us on this radio station are? I don't know. You decide. Carry on.
Me carry on?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Hossenhab sits down next to the spirit and weeps for him in his sad state. Okay, and the story goes. His habit, after the way he had done, he ferried across and reached his house. He caused offerings to be prepared, saying, I will provide him with all sorts of good things when I go to the west side. He went up onto the roof.
West side massive. Sorry.
And he invoked the gods of the sky and the gods of the earth, southern, northern, western, and eastern, and the gods of the underworld, saying to them, send me that august spirit. And so he came and said to him, I am Ur, who has come to sleep during the night next to his tomb. Then the high priest of Hossenhab said to him, please tell me your name, your father's name.
Possum feather!
Me off. Please tell me your name, your father's name, and your mother's name, that I may offer to them and do for them all that has to be done for those in their position. The august spirit said then said to him, go ahead. Is my name, and
Ahmed. Do you want me to do it?
Ahmed is my father's name, and Tashmash.
Tamshas!
One apart. Right. Then the high priest of Amun-Re, king of the gods, Nosambab, said to him, tell me what you want, that I may have it done for you, and I shall have a sepulchre prepared anew for you, and have a coffin of gold and Sisyphus made for you, shall rest therein, and I shall have done for you all that is done for one who is in your position.
Missionary.
The august spirit then said to him, no one can be overheated who is exposed to wintry wind.
Exposed to wintry wind, he needs to stop doing that, otherwise they're going to have to get some more wrappings. Small ones, I'll grant you, but, that gets small.
Hungry without food. It is not my desire to overflow like the inundation. Not saying my tomb, I would not reach it. There have been made to me promises. Right, Mark, do you want to continue with the rest?
Okay. Now, after he had finished, the high priest of Amun-Re, king of the gods, Hossenhab, sat down and wept beside him with a face full of tears. It was also a face full of lager and doner kebabs as well, but good night. And he addressed the spirit, saying, how badly you fare without eating or drinking, without growing old or becoming young, without seeing sunlight or inhaling northerly breezes. Darkness is in your sight every day. You do not get up early to leave and stop exposing yourself to the cold wind, you filthy animal. Then the spirit said to him, when I was alive upon the earth, I was overseer to the treasury of the king Mentuhotep, and I was lieutenant of the army, having been at the head of men and nigh to the gods. I went to rest in year 14 during the summer months of the king of Upper and Lower Egypt. He gave me my 4 canopic jars and my sarcophagus of alabaster, and he had done for me all that is done for one in my position. Missionary. He laid me to rest in my tomb with its shaft of 10 cubits. See, the ground beneath has deteriorated and dropped away. The wind blows there and seizes the tongue and other things. Now, as you're having promised me, I shall have a sepulchre. Good God, woman, what have you been eating? I have it 4 times already, that it will be done in accordance with them. But what am I to make of the promises you have just made to me so that all these things may succeed in being executed? In other words, you've promised me all this, but how are you going to do it? And then the high priest of Amun-Re, king of the gods, Khunsaman, said to him, please express to me a fine commission such as is fit to be done for you. It's done for you. Or I will simply have 5 men, 5 maid servants, totaling 10. Yes, 10, 5 and 5 makes 10. Never got. Devoted to you in order to pour libation water for you, and I will have a sack of emmer. What is emmer? What is a sack of emmer? Does that mean they go around slaughtering women called emmer and chop them up and make mincemeat and, I don't know, emmer lasagna. A sack of emmer lasagna. There you go. Delivered daily to be offered to you. And also the overseer of offerings shall pour libation water to you. Basically, people are going to bring food and drink. And then the spirit of Nebuchadnezzar said to him, what use are these things? Unless a tree is exposed to sunlight, it does not sprout foliage. Stone never proceeds to age, it crumbles only dough. Oh, he's a miserable bucket, this one, isn't he? He's miserable. They're offering help him. And he's like,
yeah, it's not your fault.
oh, God. Hang on, just 1 second. The only thing you know about the ancient Egyptians is that the Bangles walk like them. Richard Clements, you, sir, you. Take a pill. And James Steele, I believe Egyptian curses are disgruntled, disrespected Egyptians, which might prove they didn't go to the afterlife as they believed. They just hung around like regular spirits. That's because once we all leave the body, we're all the same. Right. And Kerry says, Amun Khunsab sounds a little like Amun Hasselhoff. Really? So what? Baywatch in Egypt style? Oh, look at that. It goes Amun Hasselhoff going down the Nile, flexing his pecs, and Pamela Henderson stripped over and bounced back up again. Yeah. Dear. Where were we? I've completely lost the thread of this. Where was I? Somebody tell me. Here. Kim Neverpeter. She'll slap you. Neverpeter. They're the high priest of Amun-Re, king of the gods. Commissioned 3 men, and he ferried them across, and they went up. They searched for the tomb. I am abridging this, as you can hear. And they found the holy temple of King and the son of Re and the mental altar. You know what? I'm too old to read some of these words. I really am, because my teeth are going to fall out. I'm going to trip over. I'm going to need to take my tablets. One puppy's collapsed somewhere beside me. Another dog's beside me. It's cats and dogs living together. I believe in the afterlife. And aliens and hallelujah. Yeah, you carry on, Kaz. I've lost it.
Okay. I've completely lost. Right, anyway.
Apparently, Richard said it's better than carrying around a sack full of enemas. Really? Richard, I'm sorry, mate, but we got Emma lasagna, and now you're talking about a sack full of enemas. Well, if they had a sack full of enemas, they wouldn't need to perform all those rituals and rites and scrape the brain out with a hook, because quite frankly, they'd blow it out the back end anyway if they had a sack full of enemas. That's all I'm saying. What you do in your private life, mate, it's entirely up to you. Carry on.
Right. Then they went back down to the river bank, and they returned to the high priest of Amun-Re, king of the gods, Hosham, and found him officiating in the god's house of the temple of Amun-Re, king of gods, and he said to them, hopefully you've returned, having discovered the excellent place for making the name of that spirit called Nebons. I can't even say it. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Endure unto eternity. Then the 3 of them said to him with one voice, we have found the excellent place for making.
Basically, they went out and they went, that looks nice over there. We'll do it there. Yeah, little spot by the
Okay.
beach. Yeah, do it there. Location. Egyptian style.
We have found an excellent place for making the name of that august spirit endure, and so they sat down in his presence and made holiday. His heart became joyful when they told him, until the sun came up from the horizon. Then he summoned the deputy of the estate of Amon Miko and informed him about his project. He returned in the evening to spend the night in Ni.
Do you know who else says ni? Or ni?
Who?
We are the knights that like to say ni. Oh man, was it Eki? So, Monty Python and the Egyptians. There you go. You found a link. I don't know. One of the Monty Python sketches, they did. There was a sketch about ancient Egyptians and aliens. There's a link. Kerry Greenaway, aliens. I thank you. I'm available for birthdays and bar mitzvahs. Back to you, Kaz.
It is assumed Hossenham kept his word and the ghost was there. No
What's
way
his
of
name?
The conclusion to the tale has never been found.
Awesome.
So there's no
Oh,
way.
wow. Sorry. Drunk Histories. They think they should have a new episode of Drunk Histories starring David Hasselhoff and the Crankies in Egypt. James Steele, whatever you're drinking or smoking, just back away from it, okay? Put it down, mate. It's just not worth it because you're going to wake up screaming in the middle of the night because you're going to have some very bizarre dreams. Yes. Say no more. Swinging Crankies, ancient Egyptian mummy. No. Carry on.
Okay then. So if the firmly held beliefs of the ancient Egyptians and discovering the tombs is true, moving on to a more modern example, how did the intrepid archaeologist Howard Carter and the discoverer of the Boy King's tomb survive where others didn't?
How did he indeed?
That's a very good question, actually.
Oh, Howard Carter and his sponsor Lord Carnarvon, actually, they discovered the long-forgotten burial chamber in the Valley of the Kings of King Tutankhamun. Don't do crack, kids. Really? See the level it's gone to in the chat room. It's just, so far tonight, we've got crankies, drugs, rock and roll, iron brew specifically, and mummies, and David Hasselhoff, and, it's, I blame Kerry for this one. She started all those. James and Kerry, bad people, naughty.
Yeah.
On this one, I'm just going to step in and just help Kaz out just a little bit because it's gone a little bit manic, Mark.
Oh, blame me?
I nearly fell off my chair at some points, I have to say.
Okay, brains and enemas, Friday night, baby. Yeah, James has got it right.
Okay, Kaz, baby. Tell us a little bit about poor old Howard Carter.
Right, okay then. Howard Carter. In November 1922, intrepid archaeologist Howard Carter and his sponsor Lord Carnarvon discovered the long-forgotten burial chamber in the Valley of Kings of King Tutankhamun. Obviously, they got lots of media attention in this suddenly forgotten boy king, and the people who discovered the tomb became world famous. Given the heavily documented beliefs in the afterlife, which were then shown in hieroglyphics in tombs and documented over time, did they disturb the King Tutankhamun's tomb, and did he come back for revenge? So, what's basically happened is, while they were excavating the tomb,
Digging.
Lord Carnarvon got bitten in the cheek by a mosquito. And
Which cheek? Was it the left bottom one or the right bottom one?
I'm not sure, it isn't documented. But one of them.
One of the four.
He made it worse while he was shaving and he died in a delirious fever in February 1923. So Arthur Conan Doyle, who was a huge believer in the paranormal, said it must be a curse of the mummy. So this was widely reported in newspapers that death was decreed on anyone who disturbed King Tutankhamun. So there was huge media speculation because there was to be an exhibition about Howard Carter and the discovery of King Tutankhamun opening in Oxford on the 24th of July 1923 at Oxford Ashmolean Museum, and it was wondered whether the people of Oxford should be worried. But at the time, in the press in the 1920s, kept finding evidence to report that the team were being punished and kept reporting about it. Lord Carnarvon's pet bird was eaten by a snake. He then himself died, and exactly almost the same time as he passed away in Egypt, his pet dog died in England.
And that's all this is true and documented because his dog, they worked out at the time Lord Carnarvon left this earth, when his spirit passed, his dog apparently cried out, went, "Arr!" and then killed over. I don't want anybody giggling in the chat room going, "Oh," and then poof, we're not talking right or anything like that. It was quite sad, and it is documented. It did happen.
So, to continue fueling the fire, allegedly a radiologist who supposedly x-rayed the mummified remains of the boy king died of a mysterious illness. A rich American who visited the excavated tomb died shortly after of pneumonia. And lastly, a member of Carter's excavation team was said to have died of arsenic poisoning.
That's right.
But the very man who discovered the tomb, Howard Carter, died when he was 64 years old of lymphoma in Kensington, London on the 2nd of March 1939. His epitaph reads, "May your spirit live, may you spend millions of years, you who love Thebes, sitting with your face to the north wind, your eyes beholding happiness," a quotation from the wishing cup of King Tutankhamun. So, how did he survive?
Well, I quite like his epitaph.
I have looked into this, and of all the people that excavated that tomb at the time, a lot of them died of natural causes, and fitting with the time. There wasn't really a curse linked to the tomb. Not really. There was, He
died of blood poisoning, didn't he, Carter? Because when he did cut him, that mosquito bite, he cut it with his razor. But, then the water and everything that they were using to shave wasn't exactly sanitary. And he got blood poisoning, didn't he? I'm sure that's what it was.
Quite explainable, though. Nothing to do with the curse, surely.
Especially given the time period.
Exactly, Kaz. And when you look at the amount of people that were excavating with them at the time, they had a huge crew. Obviously you had the famous connections, but generally there was a lot of other connections too, like the workers. And when they actually looked at it, there wasn't really a correlation between excavation and death. It was just a lovely mythology that spread around this lovely little story. But it does add to the mythology of the Egyptians. I found it absolutely fascinating, Kaz, the research you did regarding the story, which oh my goodness, the story that was told, that was found on one of the pots that they never found the ending to.
No,
the big jars.
Yeah, the jars. I just found that absolutely fascinating what you found out. I just think the whole Egyptian thing is full of mythology. It's full of stories. It's full of all sorts of things, cross-culturing all sorts of belief systems. So where do we go with this, guys? They obviously had a huge belief in the afterlife.
Well, there's been evidence found, haven't they, lately, that they think the ancient Egyptians actually lived a hell of a lot longer back than they thought, and they're starting to rethink how long we as humans have been on the earth. And they think it's been a heck of a lot longer. There's been various things found that they think could be ancient power plants and this, that, and the other. But all the stuff they're finding now dates back from literally thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. So I'm keeping an eye on it, and when anything new comes up, I'll let you know.
Cool.
Kaz, what do you make of all the Egyptian stuff?
I think, to me, they seem to be quite superstitious people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They had to have the rituals and they had to have the ceremonies and they had to have... But that's not like any other belief system, is it? Really? Because all belief systems have the rituals and things when people pass on. But
exactly.
As for curses, I don't necessarily believe in curses. Read disturbed terms.
No, I think there was a lot of coincidence, and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, as you know, he wrote Sherlock Holmes and all that lot. I think he jumped on the bandwagon because him saying "there's a curse" is pretty much people are going to go, "Oh my God!" He just said there's a curse, so there must be, and that added to the whole ethos. And sold T-shirts with "I've been to Tutankhamun."
Arthur Conan Doyle was a very double-edged sword in his time. I mean, on one hand, he produced Sherlock Holmes, was very logical and incredible read even to this day. And then on the other hand, he believed in the fairy thing, didn't he?
And he did Tarzan, didn't he?
The Cotting Shawl fairies, wasn't it? If I remember rightly.
Yeah, the little girls with the fairies in the garden.
Exactly.
That's right.
So, he was a very... Maybe that's a subject we need to look at, is Arthur Conan Doyle, guys.
Well, he was into a lot of stuff. I mean, sorry, I've got a dog here drinking water beside me. I do apologise for that lapping wet sound that's coming over the radio. I can assure you it's not me.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he was into a lot of spiritual and paranormal and spooky stuff. There's a heck of a lot more to him than people realise. So I reckon that would make quite an interesting show.
So do you think next week we should look at Arthur Conan Doyle?
Yes.
Yeah, I reckon we should.
That was a resounding yes from Kaz.
Yes. Well, I'm off next week, so I can do some research as well. So we can all pull our research. That's Australian research. We can all pull it together and drink some iron brew.
Well, I think that's a
I'm
definite...
changing your name to Jimmy.
I think we should, Kaz.
Yeah, his name is now Jimmy. That's it.
Yeah, we're not joined by Mark Manley. We're joined by Jimmy Mark Manley.
Yeah.
Oh, Kaz, you can come round next week and we can do some research and you can meet everybody. And I'll call you Stoner.
Whatever.
Oh, there's bonding going on in the studio tonight, clearly. Bonding going on. Anyway, the research tonight was done by Kaz. Very well done, Kaz, because that was... there was a lot there that I never heard of before, particularly going back to the very, very, very first ghost story, I think we could say, can't we? I don't think I found an older ghost story than that.
Well,
that ghost story, little stupid bit of information for you, but that ghost story was actually turned into a book by Terry Pratchett. It was.
Oh,
he did one. Yeah, he did one book set in ancient Egypt, and that was it. The ghost of the guy's dad was in it, and that was all based on that story that you.
I never knew that. I've read that book.
I can't remember what it's called, but you know the one I mean.
It had the pyramids capped by quartz, and then they all started charging off, didn't they?
Yes, that's right. And Tepik, that was the boy's name.
Yes.
And Tepik comes from one of the names in the story. And his father, the one who's going around seeing himself being embalmed and everything, going, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" It all comes from that story.
Oh, I'm going to have to dig that book out and read a bit of Terry Pratchett this week. Have you read Terry Pratchett, Kaz?
Not a lot, no. But I'm going to go for that book now.
I think you should. Because now he said it, it's kind of resonating with me, and I'm like, oh my God, of course. Anyway, guys, well done. Thank you for holding the fort for me in the background. I've been typing away in the background and stuff. Thank you so, so much. You're drawing it to the end of the show now, guys. Do you want to wrap it up?
What, like the mummies? Well, I will say aliens. See, I managed to get the link in there this week as well. So, and I've actually had... On our Twitter site, I've actually had some people message me asking if we can have some... Whose phone's ringing?
Mine. Sorry.
Whose phone is that?
Sorry, that's me.
I've actually had some people contact us on Twitter asking if we can have some T-shirts made with the word aliens on.
Really?
Oh, I'm trying to turn the phone off and it won't answer.
Seriously.
Sorry.
If you could put your social media on the hold for just 1 second.
No, that's my house phone. No one ever calls me on my house phone.
So yeah, I've been asked if we can do some T-shirts with aliens on.
No.
Just the word alien.
No. Sorry, put my foot down.
A spoil sport.
Anyway, guys, that's...
Yeah, go on, poo yourself. I don't care. Put the podcast in the fridge.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for tonight. Don't forget, guys, we are on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. You will, you will get notifications every time a show goes up on our YouTube channel. We are also on Facebook. We have a like page and a group page. That's Parasearch Radio. All of our shows that go out all week are available to listen again on podcast. Don't forget to join me, hopefully, on Sunday evening.
You haven't faded away.
If I haven't faded away, Sunday at 9 p.m. I have. Oh my goodness, the Law Brothers coming into the studio to talk to me on the what show do I do on a Sunday? Spirit Dimension show. See, I am really not with it tonight, hence why I was not in most of the show tonight. I wish you all very, very good evening. For the American listeners, be safe. There's a lot of trouble going on over in America. Be safe. Be
careful, guys.
Be careful.
And we are also on Twitter, the Dark Knights. Look up Dark Knights Paranormal.
And Parasearch Radio on Twitter. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Caz and Mark, for holding the fort for me tonight. And on that note...
That's all right.
On that note, guys, say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night!
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.